Today we're making these Twix cookies. These are super easy to make and taste delicious. Let's get started. To a bowl we need 2/3 cup of softened butter, half a cup of sugar, 2 egg yolks, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. We're gonna mix this up real quick, and since this is a shortbread cookie, we don't need any leavening such as baking powder or baking soda. We do need flour though. 1½ cups of flour. We're gonna add half now, mix, and then add the rest in. Don't you love it when your cookie dough climbs up your beaters instead of staying in the bowl where it belongs? We're gonna scrape all this dough down into a ball on the bottom of the bowl. Cover it with something, I'm using foil because we're all out of cling wrap, into the fridge for 1 hour to chill. Once your dough is ready, grab your cookie scooper and scoop out some dough. Most thumbprint cookies don't spread, and even if they do, the spread is very minimal. For this recipe, I highly suggest taking your ball of cookie dough and cutting it in half. Roll each half as its own individual cookie. Otherwise, you'll end up with a fairly large cookie. This cookie scooper is about a tablespoon size worth, pretty standard. Here, let's have a look at the difference. On the left is the regular size cookie, and on the right is the cookie cut in half. One is clearly a little bit bigger than the other. If your cookies are for a party, then I'd suggest going with the smaller cookie. That way everybody gets a cookie. Once you've rolled all the dough into balls, place them on a parchment lined baking sheet. Grab a teaspoon sized measuring spoon and dip the back in some sugar, then press it down into the center of each ball. We're creating a well for that delicious caramel. The sugar isn't really necessary. I mainly use it to help keep the measuring spoon from sticking to the cookie dough. You can of course use flour if you don't want to use sugar. Once all of your cookie balls have been smushed with a spoon, it's off to the oven they go. 375 degrees for 7 to 10 minutes depending on your oven. For me, I needed the full 10 minutes. Alrighty, take a look at that spread. Definitely not your traditional thumbprint cookie. Still, this is correct and how they should look, so no panicking. For the caramel, the recipe recommends using those wrapped Kraft Caramels, the ones in the little squares. I'm going with these caramel bites. If you don't have these, use those square wrapped Kraft Caramels. You'll need about 14. Add in 3 tablespoons of heavy cream to the microwave. 1 to 2 minutes, stirring every 20 seconds or so. As a side note, caramel bites and the wrapped square version are pretty much the same thing. I just prefer the bites over unwrapping a bunch of caramels. Personal preference. Once your caramel is nice and smooth, you can either use a spoon or a piping bag to apply your caramel to your cookies. I'm going with a piping bag. To me, the flow of caramel just feels more controlled in a piping bag. For the chocolate on top, I'm going with these melting candies. I purchased these from Hobby Lobby. You will want to use melting candies over chocolate chips. Chocolate chips don't really contain enough cocoa butter to temper properly, so you'll probably end up with streaks or a weird swirl appearance. Into the microwave for 1 to 2 minutes, stirring every 20 seconds or so. Same thing here, you can either use a spoon or a piping bag. I'm gonna go with a piping bag again because I want to decorate my cookies a little differently with this back and forth drizzle motion. You could also just spoon on a little bit of chocolate in the center and let it just naturally spread out over the caramel. I am keeping my drizzle lines kind of tight. I want to cover the majority of the caramel so I can stack these cookies later after the chocolate has set. The more time they have to set, the less likely they are to stick to each other. If you're in a rush and need the chocolate to set up immediately, put them in the fridge for at least 5 to 10 minutes. This was a fun cookie to make. It looks more complicated than it really is. The only thing I would change is maybe adding a little sprinkling of sea salt to the top of the caramels before applying the chocolate. It was good without it, but I feel like the cookie needs that little kick of sea salt on top since it is loaded with so much caramel and chocolate. Kind of makes me think of those Starbucks salted caramel cake pops. If you're interested, I'll add an ingredients list right here. Speaking of Starbucks' salted caramel cake pops, check out my copycat version. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.